right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll ask Cassie tomorrow and see if she
I
can
can't
check with
imagine it'd be
them.
more expensive either, so.
Shouldn't be.
No.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will start with the approval of the agenda. Paul, any changes, corrections, or comments?
Nope.
Dan?
I'm good.
Anything? Ryan?
Nope.
Okay. We're gonna add A2I in the consent agenda, final pay request for the Safe Routes to School, which is in the package at $6,541.89. A2J, Fire Department Training request is in the packet. I2, Housing Support, under Administrator's Report, and then K1, Reynolds resignation letter from KPD, number K1. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On the consent agenda, questions, comments for administration on the consent agenda?
Sorry, go ahead. I was just wondering what, under E2, that asterisk behind,
We received theirs late. That was,
Okay.
I wasn't sure if they were actually gonna make it into the packet, but, so we had them on the agenda, but they did get their documents in. They came
Okay.
a little late on Friday, but,
And they are in Dropbox.
yeah, and then, okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why.
That's been updated.
That was one,
Okay.
if I had to pull, I was gonna pull that if they hadn't gotten their paperwork in, so.
Okay.
I had the same question, so.
Sure.
I assumed that, but then,
Anything else? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to, the mayor's report. The only thing I've got there, I got a letter from KM Snowdrifters, the snowmobile club that does all the trail grooming and stuff in the area. They have a banquet every year where they invite landowners in for like a appreciation. Thank you for letting us use your land for the trails. And since the city of Casson has land that they use, they've invited somebody from the city to attend if they'd like. So I can pass this around if you have the date, if you'd like. I think it's March 23rd in Manorville. If anybody's interested, let me know. I told them I'd share that. And it's a free meal, so take advantage. On to old business, number 1, Matt Moss response for the sirens. Tim?
Sure, you'll recall, at our last meeting, we discussed the sirens, and there was some questions about whether the time could be, changed. So, I won't belabor it, but you've got in your packet there, Mr. Moss indicates that the, county is not planning on changing the times. So,
Okay. I guess then we're not changing the times.
right.
Thanks, Tim. New business, Casson Aquatic Center, 2024 staffing approval.
Sure, at their last meeting, the Park and Rec Committee, discussed staffing at length, discussed the numbers of staff people. They're very satisfied, very happy with the numbers of people we've had apply this year. They have, included in your packet there, the folks who are gonna be hired and the levels they're gonna be at this year. What they're seeking, I think, they recommend approval of these, and, I guess, if you have anything else to add from that, Ryan?
I think there were roughly 66 staff members between a manager, assistant managers, WSI lifeguards who can then do the trainings, not trainings, but they can do swimming lessons, and then lifeguards, and then staff that run our concessions. Ben was wondering if we want to set a cap ever for that, but we talked about how it's important to keep having those individuals wanting to apply and keeping those numbers high, because typically we see a lot of our concession stand workers eventually become lifeguards. So the more we keep concession stand members in, the more we keep lifeguards in, which means we keep lifeguards getting a WSIs, which means we keep doing swimming lessons, which means we keep the pool going. So all those things we kind of want to put into consideration when we don't set a cap for numbers.
Okay. Any other questions for Ryan?
Yeah,
Yep.
so where it says certificate and then there's question marks, is that they don't have them, they're not getting them, they're getting them?
We're working on a date Ben was working with Dodge Center to find a location and a date for the next training. They were able to house us, 16 of us, top of my head, I think 16, but we had more than that, so they're looking at a date and location. Talk about filling the pool early so that we could do some of those trainings 2 weeks prior to opening of the pool as well. So getting them here if we can.
So will we get an update after they get them to make sure they're certified?
Yes.
Goes in their file.
Okay. I just like to make sure, especially when it's marked in there like that, I need, so.
As long as they didn't get it certified in Mason City where they all got punted last summer because the certification wasn't accurate, and they took their licenses away.
Actually, the new we'll be able to certify, I mentioned that in my report, we're gonna be doing the, training here at Casson, which is exciting for us because certification for lifeguards has been difficult for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be really nice, and it'll be good for the area pools, Dodge Center, and some of the other ones too.
Nice.
We're in a situation where we have 66 applicants or employees now, where some pools around us are struggling to be open because they don't have enough staffing for it. So it's a good problem for us to have that many staff.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. Any other questions for Ryan?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business number 2, municipal cannabis example.
Well, I know we've discussed this, and I want, short agenda tonight, just want to throw this at you to think about ahead of our work session mostly. There's a working group, the League of Minnesota Cities, there's a number of cities that are contemplating this. Osseo was one, this was out of the Star Tribune, that they had a big article written about it, they're actually moving forward with it. So, something to think about. Other cities are doing it, positives, negatives, there are different positives and negatives, obviously, but wanted you to have some information on it and to be thinking about it. It'll be a topic we'll have for our work session discussion. And if you have any feedback before that, please let me know, because it's going to be coming pretty quickly this second half of this year.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Any questions right now, or do you want to wait till the work session?
If there's any questions now, I mean, I can't necessarily answer them, but I can certainly...
Yep, if there's any...
My only comment is if we do consider this, I think it should go to, it definitely needs a public hearing. We would
for
wanna-
sure.
We would want to get approval from the people, but
Get feedback.
We'd still allow other businesses to do it too, and not just,
I don't know if you could.
Well, I mean,
That's
the
what I'm wondering.
requirement in the state of Minnesota, at least based on my knowledge of it, is that for every 20,000 people, you have to allow one
okay.
location. So, for example, in Dodge County, if there was one in Dodge County, the county board would then be able to say, well, we don't want to allow any other ones outside of the city, so we control our own.
Sure.
There are 5 people who want to start businesses in town, they won't all be able to get licensed, because the state's not going to go with that kind of
Yeah.
funding for the population level, but, so I mean, it certainly is up to the council and what you want to do.
Thanks, Tim. On to your report.
Sure.
It's going fast.
A couple things. Housing bill, this is an interesting one. Gonna preempt a lot of local, control over zoning. I'll let you read through that yourself, but you can see some of the rules they're talking about. It's possible that they'll thin out some of these. Right now, they're talking about cities under 5,000 maybe not being restricted. Some people have talked about maybe taking cities that are 10,000 or less out, so it might not affect us as much, but those are the criteria, and I know I've talked to Brad Scheib. It would require us to make some significant changes to the city code, especially around density. That would be a big change. So, not necessarily bad things, just things that the state's kind of seeing a housing problem and taking a sledgehammer to it, as they sometimes do. Park and Rec, I mentioned that. We have the Boulevard Tree Program, very popular, back again this year. So if, folks who are looking for boulevard trees or trees for their lawn, that's first come, first served. EMS, back in January, you had a presentation from Dodge Center. Those folks over there do a good job. They're looking for more funding. It sounds like, from what I've been told by the legislative folks, that might be the one thing the legislature really gets done this year that's new. It will probably be some funding for EMS. So that's positive. Hopefully that would allow us to continue to see that service, but also not have a lot of local costs here in Casson. And then I've got some updates on Compass, how they're doing. Mr. Anderson, the CEO, is going to be coming to a work session, so he'll be presenting a little bit on that work session. So I told him, only 2 hours long, that's all he can present for, so, no, I'm just kidding. It won't be that long, but, he's got a lot of good information, and I think it'll be, yeah, right. No, maybe a half hour, for him, maybe. And then Tyler, so we have had run-ins, there's a few issues with the software changeover. The timeline that they gave us last year versus the timeline they've been pushing is not jived as well, especially we have some new staff that we're bringing on. We're gonna continue to work through the issues and hopefully still be able to have a deliverable. Worst case scenario, if we have to go back to the drawing board, we will. But I'm hoping that we can still, make a turnover this year at some point and then start using the new software in the new year, so. That's all I've got in my report. Other than that, I do include a more extensive financial report for you there, the investments the city has. So I like to try and bring this information to you because I think, while it may not be something you're interested in every day, it's good for you to know what we do and where the money that the city has is put. So you can see we have a couple different investment, groups that we work with. We are transitioning some of our funding over to 4M just because it's easier to maintain and utilize. It's a little bit, less opaque than some of the other services. For example, we only get an update from Edward Jones every quarter, so it doesn't give us that real-time kind of information that you would see with the 4M folks. But if you have any questions on any of the financial information that we provide, you certainly are welcome to ask me or let me know, because I want to try and be very transparent for you and for the public, so.
Okay, any questions for Tim?
How much have we invested so far into the Tyler system?
I don't know off the top of my head what the full amount is. I think we had about $30,000 total last year, and I don't know what the bills to date would be totaled up.
So if we get too far in to spending money on it, not to use it versus...
Sure, and that's definitely a consideration. Like I said, my preference would be to continue to be using it with the schedule that's modified. We had a little bit of a conflict with one of their project managers, attitudinally speaking, just did not have a good attitude. Had to remind them that they work for us. We're paying them to help us, not the reverse. And, so, hopefully, I don't know how their meeting went on Tuesday. Hopefully it went a little bit better, but,
It went really, really well.
Good.
And we will be up and running by January 1st, but he's agreed to back off a little for now so that we can get the audit done, we can get all our stuff done, and we'll start back up in June 1st. So we have a few months to take this training that they wanted and to work towards it and still get our work done, because it's been very grueling to try and work with them to get our accounts in and everything else. I don't remember ever doing this with another software company, and I've changed software 3 times here. It seems like we're doing a lot of the
Heavy lifting. And they have to then approve it, so now you have to look through 2,000 accounts and see if the numbers are all right. So it's very time consuming. So they've agreed. They were expecting us to get up and going by June 1st, and we just said no. I just don't want us to invest too much into something that's not gonna work for you. Right?
no, absolutely. I'm definitely cognizant of that. So, no, I appreciate it. It's a good question. Did have a couple other things in there, too, this housing support information. And these are some recent articles, actually, from the Post-Bulletin about tax abatement and TIP in Rochester. Just wanted to make you aware that we do have a couple of projects that are coming up this year that will very likely request that kind of support. And I think it's something that we haven't necessarily done the last couple of years, especially related to housing. But I know of 2 projects right now that'll be asking for some incentives. Just wanted you to be aware that, competitors in our market, Rochester is a competitor for housing. They are looking at doing some of that, so it may be something that we need to take a more serious look at as we get requests that come out. So, wanted to share that with you as well.
Okay, any questions? Thanks, Tim.
You bet.
Appreciate it. On to the engineer's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. 3 items tonight. I'll just jump right into the first one. That's what we're calling the 2024 street and utility improvements. There's a construction plan in the packet there that shows the area. The 3 areas we're looking at, we labeled them as Schedule A, which is the Vale property development. We have a development agreement that I think is being produced and a purchase agreement with that property there, the second phase of that. So that project there would close up the cul-de-sac there and facilitate that development there. Commerce Drive water main loop, that's behind City Hall here. That's going to loop over some water main over the Linden Manor area. That's an area that we have a single water main serving that area. We knocked that area out of water service when we did the, big storm sewer behind the fire hall there. We didn't have a water main loop, so that's gonna close that loop up there. That's Schedule B, and then Schedule C is, paving a liquor store parking lot. You may notice when we put that wall in on 57, we took out some of that parking lot, didn't repave that, it's in really rough shape. So that's, the third part of that project. Schedule is advertised in paper next week, receive bids on the 20th, come back to the council on the 27th to consider awarding the project. Completion date will be October 1st, and then we're gonna push forward the, liquor store parking lot, try to get that done by Memorial Day. She wanted that, the liquor store manager desired to have that done last year, we just couldn't get it all pulled together with everything going on and all the traffic we had all over, so, we have a good staging plan for that project, and we've worked it out with the manager, so, just maybe get into the plans a little bit more, jumping in, we have a typical section there, sheet 2, sheet 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 are kind of some details, sheet 7 there, that's the Vale area there. You can see the road that we built last year, now we're just building the cul-de-sac off there to facilitate the development of the future apartment to the west. You can actually see their line work in there, so we've coordinated that all with them. So that's the second apartment that would go in there, and we actually show apartment, you can see on the south side of the page there, working with Hamilton that did the first apartment, there's been some discussions about their second phase. And I think that's part of their purchase agreement of the first phase. So accommodating them there with water and sewer service. And then we have that residual lot immediately west of the water tower that Tim and staff have been working on to potentially have some development there. So it's gonna be all set up, ready to go. So if you know anybody wants to build a smaller apartment, bring them forward to staff because we do have that lot available. So that's the nuts and bolts of that portion of the project. Sheet 8 there, big green line, that's turf restoration, blue line's the water line. Pretty straightforward from an engineering perspective, just connecting the two water lines that are dead-ended, again, to create that loop so we have redundancy in our system in the Linden Manor area. And then the last page shows the liquor store parking lot there. You can see the west leg of the mini roundabout and Main Street's on the sheet there, and then that gray hatched area is where we're gonna repave. Add some curb and gutter between the railroad and the parking lot, kind of define that. We have a lot of cars that are kind of parking off in the grass to make that look a little nicer there and improve some drainage. And then you can see that little pink mark there, that's a catch basin and a storm sewer pipe that we stubbed underneath the wall when we did 57. So we thought that all through when we were putting the plans together. Met with staff on all these projects, and like I said, the liquor store manager to work out some phasing there. We have some contractors phasing and worked with her on some other work there, so it's been all about staff. Going back to the RCA, do recommend passing a resolution to approve the plans and order the advertisement for bid. And then also in your council packet is the actual advertisement that'll go to the newspaper and allow staff to get this ball rolling. We are seeing a really good bidding environment, especially with this weather. We may be a month and a half ahead of schedule. And last fall was pretty good for contractors, and there's not a ton of work, so maybe a really good time to do some projects, because we're seeing a lot of hungry contractors out there. Costs are still expensive, but maybe their margins and availability is getting better from our perspective. So with that, I'll ask for consideration of the resolution, and obviously answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Brandon. Any questions on the street and utility improvement projects for 24? Thanks for doing all that.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'll entertain a motion to approve going forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution, approving plans and go for bid.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Second item tonight, Second, Third Avenue and Municipal Parking Lot, request for council action. So we kinda had all these miscellaneous projects that we, intended to construct this year. So council gave us a direction to repave, Second and, Third Avenue from Main Street, to the railroad tracks. You can see in the RCA, there's a little map there, that's the little green blobbed in areas, and paving some pretty poor condition. In addition to that, there was council had asked for an alternative to pave the red area there, that's a municipal or EDA-owned lot, into a municipal parking lot, that's currently an aggregate parking lot, to basically make some improvements back there to provide some additional parking. So, staff got into it, we looked at the scope of the project and said, well, we're repaving, we've assessed those in the past, we assessed them, I think, last year in our street project, and we're talking about assessments of Southwest Casson Reconstruct project as part of that bonding bill project. So we said, well, we probably need to assess, but there's some cost to assess, from our standpoint. We had to have public hearings and whatnot, so we said, well, is this worth taking back to the council to ask them what they wanna do with the project? Because we would be assessing, a lot of it would be ourself, the railroad, we're not gonna likely assess them. And then there's a couple properties in there that would be, could be assessed anyway for the benefit to their property. So, just wanted to bring that back to the council. Again, we have three options there. Special assessed improvements, like we have on past projects and likely to do in the future. Not special assessed because the costs that we're gonna cover may not be as much, when we ultimately look at the additional cost to do the assessment process. Or maybe add this to another project and do a larger assessment project. The one that we just approved was not gonna be assessed, so it was a little cleaner from our standpoint. And then maybe add it to another project, maybe this fall, indoor, next year. Do it as part of a larger project, so we have some more, mass, and if the city has to bond for part of it, makes bonding, more economical for economy of scale. Specifically, there's, 8th Street Northwest has been on our, and we'll talk about it at the staff, meeting here, a couple weeks. 8th Street Northwest from 8th to 12th Street's been on that list. There's some poor water main in there. I know, the water department would really like to get that project done, and the pavement's in pretty poor condition, so there's definitely some needs out there, but we're just trying to balance staff time and what do we do in getting kind of projects put together if we're gonna go through the special assessment process. So, I'll pause there. We're ultimately just looking for some direction so we can move stuff forward.
Okay, thank you. Comments for Brandon?
Do we have an estimated cost for these jobs? Because I think the last time we talked about this, we kind of said, well, if we're going to do any paving, we need to do the streets first before the parking lot, right? But I think you had given us like a real general cost breakdown of what it is, because
I don't have those in front of me.
I think the cheaper it is, the easier it'd be to not do an assessment, right? That's basically what you're saying, is it's a small project, and then the overhead costs of doing all that is kind of, doesn't make sense?
Yeah, we just gotta call public hearings. There's more engineering side of things. It makes my life, just more work, right? So then, if we start looking and say we're only gonna recover, $50,000, $60,000 it costs.
I think that was more of the consideration was, are we gonna have five assessments? Are we gonna be able to recover 50,000? If it's a big enough project, the assessment bond is something that we have to use. So if we don't assess, then I have to figure out a different way to pay for it. So.
Right, so that's why I'm asking, how much is it gonna cost?
Sure, no, that's a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head. I thought it was like 400,000, 500,000.
Yeah, I don't have that right in front of me, sorry. I'll work on it as we're talking here.
Because I don't know, I'm of the opinion, if it's under $500,000, I think we can come up with the money and pay for that. And then, I'm still of the mind that if we can't do the whole thing, we should probably do the two streets if we have the money for that, because the streets are pretty rough there.
True.
I like your option of adding it into the other project on 8th, if that means we have to put it off till fall. If we could, you're gonna get more, potentially better bids too, if they have a bigger project to work on.
Would 8th be a total reconstruction, though?
Charlie and I talked about, Public Works Director Bradford and I talked about that. At a minimum, the road would be reconstructed, so it still would be an assessed project. And we would imagine that we just replace some of the curb and guttering spots. We think the sewer's in pretty good shape. So just be a water main project and a street reconstruction.
I was just thinking, because if it was total reconstruction, we'd never get it done by fall. With all the stuff we do ahead of time, that's not...
Correct, yep. I mean, we get it together by fall, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
And I think, quite frankly, we're gonna have a really good bidding environment in fall, so.
Sure.
There's gonna be some counters looking for work, so.
I do like the idea of trying to lump this with another project if we can. But it depends on cost too, would be nice to know.
Can we table this until our work session?
Yeah, it's just...
It's like in a week, isn't it?
Yep.
The 9th.
And I can work with staff, we got a staff meeting tomorrow, look at some of the costs, Tim, and see what you think from a bonding perspective. We do add 8th in there, just do some rough numbers and see what that would look like.
Sure. I think, we just wanted to bring it to your attention, that we need some feedback, and I think the work session, if that gives us enough time, it'd be perfect time to discuss it more.
Be nice to get it all done at once too, for some of the businesses that are around there, if we can, versus chunking it.
Okay, so staff will review, come back either at the council workshop, talk about moving it forward.
Okay.
Thank you. Good with that one?
Thanks, Brandon.
Last item?
You betcha, you're on a roll.
All right. Just update on Madison Creek Flood Control, Southwest Gas and Reconstruction Project, that's the Bondingville project. We have actually meeting tomorrow night, or, excuse me, tomorrow morning between, DNR Dam Safety and MinDOT regarding some of our first hydraulic analysis of the breach analysis. That was really gonna be the turning point of that project, so that's coming to a head on our end, so then we'll have some clarity moving forward on permitting and getting stuff together. Same thing with Southwest Gas and Reconstruct, unless council objects, we're gonna start looking at topoing that, because I think both projects we can get them slated for 25 construction, so, next construction season, so. I know it's been a push, the money's out there, so let's get the projects done, so, plan on moving those forward unless directed otherwise. And then staff's been working on the actual application from MMB, Minnesota Management and Budget, so that'll be coming forward at a council meeting too, because we'll have to have formal.
Yeah, we'll have a resolution.
Approval of that,
Council on
so.
one of the meetings in March, so.
Yep. Just an update on that project, so.
Okay.
Other than that, you did approve on your consent agenda for pay request for safe routes to school, and the 16th Street roundabout was paid, so staff's
Have
working
those
on.
done with.
Yep, we gotta get reimbursement for them, so, we'll be hammering those out now and, shoring those up and getting all that reimbursement together, so.
Perfect.
If we have time, a couple other things, we are working on a couple other grant applications, here in March that we'll be bringing forward, specifically with some trail connection grant that we connected some trails, for council consideration. We're thinking with, potential development of Windsor Court to the south end of town and, maybe connecting some trails there to get, it's gonna be a pretty big area of people down there not served by any pet facilities, so we're looking at some different areas, so, maybe bringing that forward in March, so if we can get 25 or 75% paid for, something we think the council should strongly consider, so.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, appreciate it. Okay, on to personnel. Number one, Ronald's resignation letter from KFD, that's in your packet. I'd like to thank Gerald for his years of service here in Casson, it's quite a few, so appreciate everything he's done for the city, and wish him the best at his next post. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept his resignation.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan, do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thanks, Ryan, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed, motion carries, thank you. On to, any questions on correspondence before we go to the closed session?
Yeah.
Yep.
Our liquor store failed a compliance check?
You did.
Yeah.
Does that happen a lot?
No.
I think it's the first time it's probably ever happened at the liquor store.
Do we have,
Yeah, I mean, when I read that, I was like,
Yeah, like
I wouldn't want to be who it was.
what are the repercussions of that? Is there,
Well, they did do some additional training last week, here at City Hall. So the staff there did some additional training, and I don't know, Josh, if you can speak to it maybe?
Yeah, they went through the uphall server training. Dram shop.
okay. Is there any sort of like strike system where we're gonna get in trouble with our license if we keep failing these?
Well, obviously, I think goal is to not fail them again, that's right.
Well,
There are some potential ramifications for the employee who was involved in that. I'm not sure where that process will go. That's more up to the police department and I'm sure the city attorney's office, more than anything that we have control over. But I'm hoping that since it was a first offense, maybe they'll, give a strong warning and let them, move on. But I know that there can be some significant penalties for the employees when they do allow that. To my knowledge, it was, they did look at the ID, they just did not recognize that it was a person who was underage.
Look closely, because it's pretty obvious on them IDs, sorry.
I'll disagree with you.
I thought that was interesting, so.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They're different.
Don't ask Kathy what she
One's
thinks.
vertical, one's horizontal.
Interesting won't be the word she uses.
No, it's not.
I wouldn't want to be.
Anyway, anything else on correspondence? Okay, with that, we're gonna go ahead and close the meeting, to have a discussion about labor negotiations, which will be recorded, and when we're done with that, we will reopen the open session, a part of the meeting to recap that and adjourn. So with that, we're gonna close the meeting, and if you're headed home, thanks for coming.
Brandon, what's with the gas line over in that new Bigelow development?